Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So in this video, we'll be learning about the Redux Toolkit right from scratch. So this video is going to be for beginners. So we'll be understanding about the advantages of Redux Toolkit and when exactly we're going to use it and how exactly we're going to use it. Okay. And apart from that, we're also going to learn about the process of prop drilling and how exactly it's going to occur and how we're going to overcome it. So if you find this interesting, please hit the like button and also subscribe for more such content. So let's get started. So first of all, let's understand the process of prop drilling. Okay, so before that, I'm just going to explain the initial code that is written over here. So I've just taken three products and then I've mapped over them, as you can see, and I have just shown the name as well as the image for that particular product, and towards the right hand side we are just showing the add to cart button. So we'll be understanding Redux Toolkit with the most simple example, so it becomes easier to write the code and understand the process as well. So we'll be implementing two functionalities, that is the add to cart functionality. That is, if at all the user presses on add to cart for a particular product, then that particular product is going to get added to the cart using the Redux Toolkit. And similarly, we'll be going through the second function, that is the remove from cart functionality. So if at all we have item already present inside of the cart, and if we press on the item again, then in that case we're going to filter that particular item out of the cart. Again, this also will be implementing using the Redux Toolkit. So we'll be understanding this simple example with Redux Toolkit, so it becomes very easy to write the code, and then you can further move on with the other examples as well. So I'm going to head over to Chrome, and then I've opened up eraser.io. So here we'll be understanding in a schematic way, so it becomes easy to learn all of the simple steps that are present. So here I'm just going to say Redux Toolkit. Use cases, you can give any name you want. So here in the canvas part, we're going to understand the example of prop drilling, right? So basically prop drilling occurs when you need to pass your data through multiple layers of components in order to reach a deeply nested component that requires the data. So when you get that data into that particular nested component, then we're going to use that. Okay, so this data needs to come from the parent level component to the next further components, and finally to the bottom level component, that is where the data is needed. So this entire process is known as prop drilling. So let's imagine we have, let's say, 4 components. So I'm going to draw over here 1, and similarly 1 more over here. So let's consider each as the top level component, and we are going down through the top to the bottom level component, right to the bottom one. Okay, so this is the final one. So let us name this as component 1, and let us consider this to be the parent component. All right, and the second one, let's name it to be child 1. So here I'm going to say child 1, and let's name the third one to be let's say child 2 over here. So I'm going to say child 2, and finally here I'm going to say this is going to be child 3. So let's take in the text over here. So here I'm going to say child 3. So let's just imagine we need the data from component 1 to child 3. So essentially what is going to happen? So we're going to pass the information as props from component 1 to child 1. Okay, so we're going to pass in, hey, just give the information to child 1. So now child 1 is going to pass in the information to child 2. Okay, so it's going to pass in just like this to child 2 as props, and then further child 2 is going to pass into the child 3 because we need that particular information to use in child 3. So again, it's going to pass into child 3 just like this. So in child 3, wherever it is required, then it is going to get used over there. Okay, so this is basically known as the entire process of prop drilling, that is passing of data from the top level parent component to the bottom level nested component. So this prop drilling often occurs when state needs to be passed from a parent component to a deeply nested child component. So to prevent this, we can make use of either Redux Toolkit or your React Context API. Whereas in the case of Redux Toolkit, we have something known as a centralized store that we'll be looking into in just a bit. So which allows components to access the necessary state without passing it explicitly throughout all the intermediate components, just like these. Okay. So now let's discuss the second disadvantage of prop drilling. So basically in prop drilling, it can result in passing of props through different components, in this case child 1 and child 2. Even though these components do not directly use the data, they are passing the data and they are having the data. So this might lead to unnecessary complexity and decreased code readability. So this is also one of the disadvantage of prop drilling. So as you can just sense over here that just child 4 is going to require the data, but here as well child 1 and child 2 is passing the data directly from component 1, which is actually not required in child 1 and child 2. So actually data is just getting passed from child 1 and child 2. So that is also going to lead to unnecessary complexity of the entire app. So to prevent this, we're going to make use of the next part that we'll be looking into is the Redux Toolkit. So here I'm just going to write a heading which says, this is for prop drilling. So now let's understand about the next part that is after prop drilling. That is of course Redux Toolkit. So here I'm going to say Redux Toolkit. Okay, so basically Redux Toolkit is a very popular, state management library that is used in popular React applications as well as React Native applications. So actually Redux Toolkit provides a more optimized way where we can write less amount of code, and we can also able to manage the entire state management in that particular application. And it is also recommended for beginners, so it is easy to write code and then we can implement the state management for that particular app. So if you would remember in the previous traditional Redux methods that involve writing a considerable amount of boilerplate code for the actions, reducers, and as well as for the store configuration. Whereas while using the Redux toolkit, we can significantly reduce the amount of boilerplate code, and it also becomes easy to write the code and understand it as well. And it also, on the other hand, becomes easier to implement the state management in your entire app. Whereas if you consider the traditional Redux process, we have to write separate actions, creators as well as reducers for each slice of state, and that can be tedious process, and it also involves a lot of code to write and implement as well. So here in Redux Toolkit, we have a bunch of options and definitions that we are going to go through. First of all, it's going to have the main store inside of it. Okay, this basically contains all the required data. And apart from that, we have something known as the create slice method, which we're going to use it in just a bit. So this create slice method is a kind of utility function provided by the Redux toolkit that allows you to define a slice of your Redux state, whatever is required, including the reducer function and the associated actions within it. So it is a kind of utility function, and it basically, as I said, allows you to define a slice of your Redux state. Okay, and of course next we have is the reducers that are going to come in. So we'll be defining all of these in the application that we're going to build. Okay, so basically these reducers in the Redux toolkit are different kinds of functions responsible for specifying how the state should change in response to a dispatched action. So these dispatched actions can be dispatched by the user when they interact with the app. So let's say we have a button, and if they interact with the button, let's say if they press on it, and if we want to add that particular button to the cart, then we are interacting with that particular button. So then in that case, we're going to dispatch the action, right? So here basically these are some functions responsible of specifying how the state should change in response to the actions that are dispatched in the front end part, or basically in the app, whatever it is, right? Now in the case of Redux toolkit, as we all know, it's going to have a main store. So let's initialize that over here. So this is going to say store. So in this case, so let's say the component 1 wants some data from the store, then store is going to directly send the data to the component 1 without sending it to any other component. Okay, so now let's imagine child 2 or child 3 wants the data from the store. Again, unlike the previous conditions, that is in prop drilling, that is where we send data from child 1 to child 2 and then to child 3, here the store is directly going to send the data to child 2 if it is required. So this is basically the advantages of the Redux toolkit. So we'll be defining basically two main hooks over here, that is known as the use dispatch hook. So I'm going to say use dispatch and then the use selector hook. So just to define it in a short way, so I'm going to say, let's say use selector, Okay, so use dispatch is a hook used to dispatch actions into the store. And if you want to, get the data from the store, then for that we'll be making use of the use selector hook. So these are the two differences between the both the hooks. So now, if let's come back to the front end part, and then we're gonna, initialize our cart reducer, and then we're gonna write some initial code for it. That is to add the item to the cart and also to remove the item from the cart. So I've already created my cart reducer file that is over here. So here I'm going to initialize my create slice method. So I'm going to say import create slice from Redux Toolkit. Okay, and over here I'm going to say const. Okay, let's also export it. So I'm going to say export const cart slice equals to, I'm going to access my create slice method. So this is basically going to take in three things: the name, the initial state, and the set of reducers. So here I'm going to say name, so you can give pretty much any name. In my case, I'm going to give it as cart, and I'm going to pass in my initial state. So since we are building a cart system, it can have many items inside of the cart. So for that reason, I'm going to say the name is going to be cart, and I'm going to pass in an empty array the initial state. So after that, we're going to pass in all of the reducers, which is in the form of an object. So let's define the first one, that is going to be add to cart. So this in turn is going to take in, of course, the state and the action. So here, first of all, we're going to check if at all any kind of item is already present inside of the cart or not. So I'm going to initialize a variable for that. So I'm going to say if my item present, that is const item present, equals to, I'm going to say state.cart. I'm going to apply the find method in JavaScript. So for every item, I'm going to say if at all my item.id equals to the action.payload.id. So if this condition becomes true, then that means that particular item is already there inside of my cart. So I'm going to say over here, if my item present, then in this case, I'm going to say item present dot quantity. We're going to access the quantity plus plus. We're just going to increase it by 1. Else, if it is not present, then we're going to add the product for the first time. Then in that case, we're going to just push that particular item into the cart. So here I'm going to say state.cart we have the push method. So I'm going to say include whatever is there inside of the action.payload, and then initialize a quantity of 1 for that particular product, right? So that's it. So this is the functionality for adding the item to the particular cart. So now the next thing is we're going to initialize the next function, that is remove from cart. So this in turn is going to have the state and then the action over here. So here basically we'll be trying to filtering out that particular item based on the ID out of the cart. So here I'm going to say const remove item equals to state.cart apply the filter method in JavaScript. So for every item I want to apply this condition, that is item.id should not be equal to the action.payload.id. Okay, so after that I'm just going to say state.cart equals to remove item. I'm just going to equate it to the state. So I'm going to say state.cart equals to remove item. So that's it. So now to use these, we need to export the required values. So here I'm going to say export const add to cart and remove from cart equals to the cart slice.actions. So we have defined two functions. So now the next step is we need to set up our main global store. So let's go do that. So I'm going to save the file and I'm going to open up my file tree, and I'm going to create a new file that is known as store.js. So here first of all we'll be importing the configure store method that is there inside of Redux Toolkit. So I'm going to say configure store from Redux Toolkit. So just make sure to to install both the things, that is Redux Toolkit and then React Redux. So if you head over to this particular website, that is reduxtoolkit.js.org, let's press on get started and just try to install both of them, that is Redux Toolkit as well as React Redux. Okay, so we'll be making use of these two dependencies. So here I'm going to write export access the method that is configure store, and here I'm going to pass in the reducers. So we just have one reducer. The name I'm going to give it as cart, and it's going to be the cart reducer. Just import that file. Okay, not create reducer, it's going to be cart reducer. Okay, let's import it manually at the top. So I'm going to say import cart reducer from / cart reducer. Okay, so this is not currently taking the value that is of cart reducer. So let's look into the cart reducer.js file over here. Okay, while exporting, okay, yeah, we have not exported the reducer. That's the mistake. So here I'm going to say export default cart sliced reducer. So now we should be able to see the correct value being used in the store. So as you can see, that's looking better. So now, yeah, the next step is let's format one. So we need to include something known as the provider that is in the main app.js. So let's make use of that. So first of all, let's head back to the app.js over here, and I'm going to initialize my provider. That's going to be coming from React Redux, and this provider is going to take in the store as the prop. So I'm going to say store equals to store. So make sure to import store from the store file because we have exported it. So I'm going to say import store from store. Yeah, so that's it. So let's save the file. Okay, so there is no error. So we have set up the Redux part. So now the next step is we're going to initialize a on press event on the button that we have, that is add to cart. So let's head to menu item over here. So here let's initialize the on press event on the add to cart button. So here I'm going to say on press equals to taken a function, and here I'm going to say add cart to the that particular item. So here basically we are mapping and we are initializing a new component that is menu item, and this is coming from the prop that is the item value. So let's initialize this function at the top, that is const add cart equals to item. Okay, so here we need to dispatch an action because the user is interacting with the add to cart button. So to dispatch an action, we need to make use of the use dispatch hook. We just learned it a couple of minutes ago. So here I'm going to say const dispatch equals to use dispatch, make use of this and import it from React Redux. Okay, yeah, so just like this. So here we're going to dispatch which action, that is going to be the add to cart action that we have defined in the cart reducer file, that is this one, right? So let's come back over here. So here I'm going to say dispatch, just say add to cart. It's going to import from the cart reducer file, just like this on line number 4. And to this we need to pass in the payload, that's going to be the item itself. So with the help of this, we are able to add any kind of product into the cart. Okay, so yeah, that's it. Okay, so now let's try and check if at all the item is being added to the cart or not. So for that, let's initialize our cart. So I'm going to initialize my cart over here. So I'm going to say const cart equals to, so to access the data, it's going to be the use selector hook. So I'm going to say use selector, import it from React Redux. Is going to take in the state, and it's going to be the state dot the reducer name, that is cart in this case. And to access inside of the initial state, again we're going to go dot cart. So let's try and console.log over here. So I'm going to say console.log of cart and then cart. So let's save the file. So as you can see, currently it is empty because there are no products that is added into the cart. So let's say I'm going to press on the first product, that is ice cream. So as you can see, as soon as I pressed on ice cream, that particular product has been added into the cart with the help of Redux Toolkit, and this is basically the object. And also as you can see, the quantity of 1 is initialized for this particular product, which is good. So now inside of the menu component, I want to show it in a different way. That is, if at all any kind of item is already present inside of the cart, then for that particular item, I need to show the remove from cart button. Okay, so we're gonna make use of the sum method in JavaScript. So let us also access the cart in this screen as well. So I'm just gonna copy down this piece of code. So over here, I'm just gonna paste it over here. Let's make sure to import use selector from React Redux, just like this. And here I'm gonna apply the condition, that is where we have the button. So here I'm gonna say if at all my cart.sum of value, here I'm gonna check the condition that if at all the value.id equals to my item.id that's coming from the props, then in this case the item is present inside of the cart. Okay, so here I'm going to show my, in the first case I'm going to show my remove from cart button. Else if it is not present, then I'm going to show the add to cart button only. So let's make the change over here. So here I'm going to say remove from cart. So yeah, let's save the file. So as you can see, as soon as I saved the file, since this particular item is there inside of the cart, we are able to see that button remove from cart. So now let's change the function over here. So here I'm going to initialize a new function saying remove cart of that particular item, whatever we press on, right? So let's define the function over here. So I'm going to say const remove from cart, or it's going to be remove cart. Yeah, it's going to be remove from cart. And let's make sure the spelling is not same for both of them, that is this and the action. So I'm just going to give it as remove cart, and here also it's going to be remove cart for the function. So here I'm going to initialize a function. So here we're going to dispatch the next action, that is the remove from cart. So I'm going to say remove from cart of that particular item. So we have imported remove from cart as well as add to cart from the cart reducer file. So let's save the file. So as soon as I press on this, it's going to go into the cart reducer file and it's going to filter out based on the ID. Okay, and after filtering it out, it's going to say state.cart equals to remove item. So whatever content is present in the array, it's going to return us back in the console. So let's check that out once. So I'm going to go back to the menu item and I'm going to press on the remove from cart. Okay, so again the array should become empty because there is only one item and we are removing it out of the cart. So as you can see, this particular item got filtered out of the cart, and again the cart array is currently empty. So similarly, we can do that for all the different products and it works absolutely fine. So let's understand how exactly this process is going to take place in the schematic representation. So I'm just going to press on canvas over here so that we can draw it over here. So here I'm going to take in a text field, and here I'm going to say understanding Redux process. Okay, so first of all, we are going to have 3 or 4 kinds of circles over here that is required. So one is for the main component that we have. Okay, and we are going to have the next one for the action that we are dispatching. So here I'm going to pass in one more, and I'm going to pass in one more for basically the store that we have where all the data is going to reside. And finally we have the reducer component, I mean the reducer functions that is going to come over here. So let's name each one of them and let's understand what exactly is going to happen if we trigger an action. So this is our main component. Let's consider this to be the menu component. Okay, so this is going to be the component just like this, and towards the left hand side, let's initialize our action value. So this is going to be the action. So let's say this is going to be a add to cart action or a remove from cart action as well, and this in turn is going to be considered as the main store. So this is going to be the store, and this is going to considered as the reducer. So now let's understand what exactly the component is going to do. So this component is going to create an action or dispatch an action with the help of the user interaction. So it's going to mark over here. So here I'm going to say create an action or a user interaction. So when a user interaction is occurred on the button, then only we are going to dispatch the action. So this action is going to take into the store. That means we're going to dispatch the action to the store with the help of the use dispatch hook, right? That's what happened when we press on the add to cart button, correct? So here I'm going to say, we're going to say dispatch actions to the store. Okay, so when we pressed on the add to cart button, we had action being dispatched, that is the add to cart, right? So because of that, what happened is that particular user object, that is that particular object, that is basically the ice cream object, whatever was there, was added into the cart, initializing a quantity of 1. So now after dispatching the action, we are gonna implement that, and basically a new kind of state is created, right? That is gonna be between the yeah, that is basically the new store is going to be between the store as well as the reducer, just like this. Okay, so yeah, after doing this, what we're going to do is we're going to basically update the store. So here I'm going to say, so after executing that particular action, either add to cart or remove from cart, this particular store is going to update the state to the component. So for that reason, what happened was you were able to see that particular object, that is the ice cream object or any kind of product, being added to the cart. So here we are just going to say update the state. Okay, so that's it. So this is the entire whole process that just occurred within these two actions. So hope you got this particular part, that is while understanding two functions, that is for the add to cart functionality as well as the remove from cart functionality. So I think that's it about this video. So if you find this video interesting, please hit the like button and do subscribe for more such content. So let's see you in the next video, and then thank you for watching.